just a minute. And then 2 minutes to start time. People are joining on Facebook. Okay. All right, so I can do this. Perfect. Ready?
Yes.
All right. About 30 seconds. All right, all right, all right. Happy Sunday afternoon. Greetings, welcome to all who are joining us either through the Zoom platform or through Facebook Live. We want to express, as we always do, we hope you're able to maintain your mental, physical, and spiritual well-being. There's so much energy in the universe right now, and it's important that you do what you can to maintain your health so that you can be strong to wage this fight. Today, we're going to focus on this question of building political parties, building our own political parties. And this discussion today is not going to be a knock on you if you're in the Democratic or Republican Party, or if you're in Britain in the Conservative or the Labour Party, or if you're in Africa in one of the many neo-colonial parties that exist throughout the continent there, or in the Central America, the Caribbean, or South America. That's not what this discussion is. The purpose of the discussion today is to talk about whatever arena you do your work in, how you can maximize your ability to get things that the people want and need from the work that you're contributing. And so a lot of people may not understand that, because people are like, well, these bourgeois parties like the Democratic and Republican Party, why would we even talk about people being in them? And people that think that way mean well, but unfortunately, with no disrespect to them, they don't understand much about how to organize people on a political level. Because if people are committed to the values of the Democratic Party, you denouncing the Democratic Party is not going to move them out of the Democratic Party. If you want to move them out of the Democratic Party, the best way to do that is for you to engage in political organizing work with them. And from them engaging in that work, they themselves can begin to see the contradictions within the Democratic Party. And then they can decide, oh, okay, I need to do something else. So that's our approach. It's very effective, it's time tested, and it works. So that's what we're going to spend the next hour talking with you about: concrete tactics to engage in that work, as well as, of course, building revolutionary parties, because that's our work. And as always, before we start, we acknowledge the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere, whether they call themselves Indians, indigenous, natives, Latinos, Mexicanos, Puerto Ricanos, Cubanos. They're indigenous people their ancestors, their descendants of the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere. And for us, we respect their right to self-determination. So they have to work that out among themselves in terms of how the land is participated with. But from our perspective, it's their land. And so we honor and respect the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere all the time. And then we also always pay tribute to our African ancestors who struggled for us to exist here today. There are mistruths going around today. Our people didn't fight for us. And anybody that says that has not picked up a book and studied our history. Our people fought from the beginning of colonial efforts to invade Africa and kidnap us. They fought. And they fought all the way to us being here in the Western Hemisphere. And if you've traveled that path as we have, if you walk through the slave dungeons in Africa as we have, you see and feel the energy of that fight and that struggle that we engage. So please stop spreading that nonsense. Our people have always fought oppression. Those fights you see us waging today on the streets of these cities all across the world, that's what we've inherited from our ancestors. So we pay homage to our ancestors for waging that fight. And then we will go ahead and just tell you again, you know, we are looking at Facebook. If people have comments, questions, please punch them in and we're happy to address them. And so we will go ahead and get started here. First, we always start with introductions. My name is Ahjamu Umi. I'm a longtime organizer for the All African People's Revolutionary Party. I've done work for the party on 3 continents and the Caribbean, primarily throughout Africa and here in the States. And that's the basis of our work. Shukura is my daughter, my amazing, wonderful, fantastic daughter who comes on here with me every week. And we engage in participating in these presentations. Shukura grew up as a child, as a young pioneer in the All African People's Revolutionary Party. And she has taken that experience to expand on her work, studying for a doctorate right now at the University of Memphis in Memphis, Tennessee, around issues of African women's health. And, you know, obviously I've been there many times to visit her and have actually participated in her activist community work there in Memphis. She's in a perfect place to engage in the work that she does, and she approaches her work with passion and commitment. And so obviously I'm extremely proud to be able to share this platform with her to discuss these important concepts that we're discussing today. In terms of the AAPRP, it's just want to say that the AAPRP is a Pan-Africanist political party. And when we say Pan-Africanism, that's our objective. And by that, we mean the definition being one unified socialist Africa, one unified socialist Africa. And when we say Africans, we mean every person of African descent to us is an African and belongs to the African nation. So that's who we are. We have chapters all over the world, all throughout Africa. That's why I spend so much time going to Africa. I should actually be in Zimbabwe right now. I had a ticket to go, but this pandemic prevented me from going. I will certainly be going as soon as I possibly can and it's safe. So just so you understand just a little bit about who we are and the work that we do, the poster, the picture on the right, and I apologize, there's a lot of noise here. There's protests. I live downtown here in Sacramento and there's protests going on. So, you know, police they're just, from what I can tell, they just keep driving around the block with their sirens blaring because they keep doing it. So, you know, that's what police do. That's where your tax dollars go. And then of course I have these birds here who are very active in articulating their political positions. So I apologize for the background noise. But if you look at the picture on the top, the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, written by Kwame Nkrumah. If you want to understand the work of the All African People's Revolutionary Party, it comes from that handbook. And the picture on the bottom is a manifestation of our work. Our work is to create a worldwide fighting force of African people for revolution, Pan-Africanism, and socialism. That's what we're committed to doing. And the picture at the bottom was an event that took place yesterday, and it kind of gives you a clear example of our work. So there you had 3 sisters in 3 different countries. The sister on the left is an organizer for the APRP in Ghana, West Africa. The sister in the middle is an organizer for the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, which is what you call South Africa. And the PAC is one of our sister parties that has the same objective that we have, one unified socialist Africa. And the sister on the right is one of our new organizers in Canada. So they talked about the issue of trafficking and sexual exploitation of our young women. Very powerful program. You can catch the video on YouTube. But again, if you want to understand who we are and our work, having African women from 3 different countries talk about how we need to come together and organize around ensuring our women are supported and protected, that's the work that we're involved in. And we also engage in work to build strong alliances with other liberation movements, the Filipino National Liberation Movement, the Palestine National Liberation Movement, the Irish Republican Socialist Movement, and of course, as I mentioned, the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere and their movement for freedom and justice. Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Shukura.
Okay, so I want to start out by pulling your attention to the second bullet. So African people in the United States were overwhelmingly Republicans because of Abe Lincoln being a Republican. And this is because we followed Lincoln because we were socialized and conditioned in schools and education to believe that we should follow and support him because he was the one who, quote unquote, ended slavery by signing the Emancipation Proclamation. The great lie is that Lincoln freed the slaves from slavery in the United States, but the truth is we freed ourselves. Lincoln himself stated publicly that because of the increasing number of slave revolts, it made slavery unsustainable, and that was the mechanization of production, also known as the cotton gin. So in terms of faster productivity and getting the job done faster, if you have a machine like a cotton gin that can pick cotton a lot faster than a human being, then the odds of you gaining more economic growth from that would obviously be to use the machine. And so instead of Africans picking it by hand, that was another angle that he was approaching and why he wanted to end slavery. And also that was the future of industrialization, was using machines and adopting technology to make the job go faster than a normal human could do it. So another way of saying that is that Lincoln saw the need to eliminate slavery as an incentive for Africans to fight against the South and as an economic and political necessity, but not because he had any moral convictions against the institution of chattel slavery. I also want to bring your attention to the third bullet. So Africans remain largely and dominantly Republicans until the 1930s, when the masses of Africans switched to become Democrats. And this is because, for the most part, Africans remained Republican until the Great Depression era, which shifted most of the political choices from Republican to Democrat. And that was all thanks to the Communist Party of the USA, which advanced the political platform during the 1920s. It's because of that Communist Party that they were able to advocate for the paid establishment of Social Security, safety net, workers' compensation, aid to families with dependent children, also known as welfare, and the unemployment insurance. And so the Roosevelt regime simply stole those ideas and made them their platform that became the New Deal, air quotes, that instituted these programs as policies within the United States. Next slide, please. Okay, so if you'll meet me at bullet number 2, the question of power in African people in the Democratic Party. Africans have given everything to the Democrats. What do we have to show for this contribution? An example of the lack of power African people have within the Democratic Party, despite our loyalty to it. So take, for example, the 1960s. Africans had 0 elected officials in any area of the United States. In the year 2020, Africans had almost 10,000 local elected officials. Africans have approximately 30 congressional representatives, including senators. Africans have had a president, yet African people today in 2020 have no more collective power than we did in 1960. We have no increased power within the system to confront and resolve police terrorism, literally. That's enough said, especially with what's going on. And we have no control over no resources to eliminate poverty at any time, when half of the houseless communities throughout the US are Africans. We have no power to stop the mass incarceration system and no power to stop U.S. exploitation and terrorism in Africa. All we have are individuals in positions and the illusion of progress. And I think that's so important to talk about that, because so many people don't understand why people like me choose not to vote. And the reason for that is people always argue and say, well, you have people that look like you in power. But if people are basing their power off of someone that looks like me and not thinking about the whole collective system, and how I gave someone an example about bad soil, if you're a gardener and if you're interested in planting trees, if you continue to plant trees in soil that's not working, then your trees are not going to flourish. So it doesn't matter how many people you eradicate and get out of positions and how many people you vote to put in positions. The system itself is not based on humanity. It's not based on people's health. It's not based on people succeeding with an equitable chance to do that. It's based on advantage, it's based on power, it's based on privilege, and it's also based on gender, and in some cases race, and class. So with that being said, if people are put in positions that are not basing their values on what is good for all of humanity, especially from a Pan-Africanist socialist perspective, then what's the point of voting? Especially if there's literally nothing to show for it. And that's what that second bullet was trying to bring to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you. So before we go further, I just want to acknowledge, because again, I'm watching Facebook, a lot of people are watching, and I just want to acknowledge that we're honored right now. One of the people who has joined us is our elder brother, Brother Mukasa Dada. And if you don't know who that is, you should know, because even the pictures that you're looking at right now, even the ability of African people in this country to vote today, he is one of the warriors that made that possible for you. So the capitalist system is not going to educate you about our real heroes, but when you have these Memorial Days and these Veterans Days, these are the people that you should be celebrating, because these are the people who sacrificed for you. So we are honored to have him with us, and we're honored to, do our best to do this program with respect to him and those people like him who really paid the cost, who really were arrested and beaten, and who today can have a very clear analysis about voting as a tactical approach, as opposed to looking at it as a principle, as if you don't vote, you're somehow betraying the struggles of our people. It's not a principle, you all, it's a tactic. And like any tactic, you use it based on its effectiveness. But the capitalist system has trained us to believe it's a principle. So therefore, we have this foolish talk about, well, if you don't vote, then you're betraying the struggle of our ancestors. I mean, that's absolute nonsense, because to say that is to suggest that the Black Panther Party, Malcolm X, the Nation of Islam, the Universal Negro Improvement Association of Marcus and Amy Jock Garvey did nothing to contribute to our people's progress. Obviously, that kind of argument is insane. So with that, we go into the discussion about the conflicts that our people have had in the Democratic Party, because a lot of us, we don't understand this history. So if we look at these pictures at the top, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which Brother Elder Baba Mukasa was an active member in, SNCC, they were closely, intrinsically involved in the struggle for voting rights in the Southern US here in the 1960s. And so what SNCC did is they went into Mississippi, and in an effort to challenge the white supremacy of the Democratic Party, they started the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. And that organization was built on the ground in Mississippi, and people who were born and raised in Mississippi, even though the SNCC activists for the most part came from out of the state in Mississippi into Mississippi, the organizers who were recruited into the MFDP, like Miss Fannie Lou Hamer, who you see the picture of right there in both of the top pictures, they were recruited and brought in to become the leadership in the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, the MFDP. And the pictures you see there are where what based on what MFDP did, they struggled to challenge the hegemony of white supremacy in the Democratic Party. Up until this time, up until 1963-64, there were no colonized people, there were no women in the Democratic and Republican Party. There were no people like that running for office. It was all rich white men. That's who the political process existed for. And what SNCC and the MFDP did is they challenged that. They organized in Mississippi and they pushed the National Democratic Party to compromise. And that opened the door for brown people, for women to exist in the US capitalist electoral process. So the pictures you see there, Miss Fannie Lou Hamer with the microphone, and at the top you can see the picture of a young Kwame Ture, who was known then as Stokely Carmichael, when they were getting ready to come into the National Democratic Party convention in New Jersey and struggle with the National Democratic Party to seat them. And the picture on the right, on the top, is Miss Fannie Lou Hamer actually walking into the Democratic Party convention, and behind her you can see all the Europeans looking and wondering like, oh my God, what are we gonna do with these people in here now? And that's, if you look at, like they call these women the squad or whatever they call them, whatever it's supposed to be, if you rejoice in that, then you have to give thanks to the militant on the ground struggle of SNCC and the MFDP, because without that, you would have never had these people who are in Congress today. And then the bottom picture, because of the struggle with the MFDP in Mississippi, SNCC realized that it was not going to be possible to seriously work for us to gain power in the Democratic Party, because even though they were able to open the door for us to participate, the way the party is structured, the way the capitalist system is structured, it was not going to be possible for us to really gain real power in the Democratic Party or the Republican Party or any party committed to the US capitalist electoral process. And the reason why that was not going to be possible is because the way the party is structured, the way finances run in the party, like it costs this national election that's about to happen in this country, it will cost a minimum of $100 million for the people running for president, whether it's Biden or Trump, it doesn't matter. That's what it costs in terms of advertisements, the building of the political machine you need to be elected. And so right there, that's gonna eliminate working people from being able to have a self-determinant voice in that process, because the only people that have that kind of money are the multinational corporations. And clearly their interests are only about capital accumulation. And to get that, they have to exploit. So that's why the SNCC organizers realized that. And they realized this process is not ever gonna give us power. So after the experience in the MFDP in 1964, in 1965, SNCC moved to Alabama and helped start the Lowndes County Freedom Organization, the LCFO. Now the difference is, the primary difference between the LCFO in Alabama in 65 and the MFDP in Mississippi in 64, both SNCC projects, but the primary difference is that SNCC realized going into Alabama that they wanted to build a different type of party. They did not want to build a party like the MFDP that was designed to integrate into the Democratic Party. Instead, they wanted to try and build a party in Alabama that would exist independent for African people's self-determination. And because of we've talked about the LCFO before, but because of the contradictions in Lowndes County, they called it Bloody Lowndes, and the active violence against our people by the Ku Klux Klan, the party had to be armed. And because most of the people in Lowndes County didn't read or write, they had to go more by their symbol, which was the Black Panther. So they became known as the Black Panther Party, and they were in fact the original Black Panther Party, as we've talked about before. But the whole point of that, and Brother Mukasa, who's on here, was the person who organized around the Black Power slogan. Many of us say it today, Black Power, but we have in our midst right now the person who is largely responsible for you even understanding that phrase and what it means, because he was the one, none of us did this, he was the one that went out on those dusty roads in Mississippi in 1966 when people were shooting at us in broad daylight without any recourse or any concern about repercussions. He went out there with just a few people and organized our people away from the Freedom Now slogan and for Black Power, Black Power. And the Lowndes County Freedom Organization was simply a manifestation of that, us forming our own independent power, independent of the system, so that we can begin to build self-determination. So that's very important to understand that, because SNCC, in my view, paved the way for us. They helped us understand that we cannot expect to have empowerment in the Democratic Party. We have to build our own organization. And so that's how we believe it. But if you don't believe it, that's fine. We still have a message for you. So say you're one of the people that believes, well, I hear what you're saying, but I'm just going to stick to the Democratic Party. I just think that's the way for us to go. We want you to understand we're not here to argue with you about that today. But instead, what we want to do is challenge you that the way that we have to participate, those of us who participate in the Democratic Party, the way we have to do it has to be fundamentally different than how we've done it up to this point. It cannot just be a process of mobilizing all our people's times and energy just to vote for one rapist over another, one racist over another. That can't be the focus. That is not what the activists from MFDP were beaten down and savagely brutalized to achieve. That's not what you're looking at today. That is not what they struggle for. They did not struggle for the lesser of two evils. I don't want to, well, do you want to get stabbed with a knife or do you want to get shot? Either way, you're going to die. That's not a choice, you all. And that's the choice the Democratic Party is giving us. And a lot of us, because we don't know what else to do, are accepting that choice. And so what we're saying to you is you should get out of the Democratic Party, but if you believe you should be in there, we're not here to argue with you about that. But what we are here to say is that you have got to figure out how to organize a grassroots movement inside of the Democratic Party that can begin to organize to make sure that whatever platform you're advancing in the Democratic Party, we have the people and the power to make that happen. Right now, we don't have any of that. And strictly supporting individual candidates clearly is not working for us. So it has to be a question of mass movements. And there are examples where that happened. Like we have the Poor People's Campaign right now, for example. That's a reform movement, but that's great because that movement can be used to exert power in the Democratic Party. In the South, in the 60s, one of the most effective campaigns that we waged were the boycott campaigns in those Southern towns. Because a lot of those towns, like you take a town like Canton, Mississippi, right? A boycott campaign was waged there. 12,000 people live in that town. About 80% of them are African. Europeans own 90% of the businesses. So who's shopping at those European businesses? We are. So all we had to do to stop Klan violence against us, to stop discrimination and hiring practices, to stop police terrorism, because police and the Klan is the same thing. I saw a meme today that really kind of crystallized the whole thing. It said the reason why you don't see police breaking up white right rallies is the same reason you don't see Hannah Montana and Miley Cyrus in the same place. And that is exactly correct. I love that. That's exactly right. So these folks in the rural town of Canton, Mississippi wanted to organize against all that. So what they did is they organized a boycott to prevent Africans from shopping at the European businesses. And they organized it, y'all. You have to study it. They organized it all the way down from the bottom of people's feet to the top of their heads. It was organized. And those businesses suffered tremendously because they relied on us to make their revenue. And so once that began to happen, all these staunch racists, of course, we'll hire some Africans. Yeah, we'll appoint some Africans to political office. Yeah, all the stuff that you all in the Democratic Party are fighting for, yeah, we'll fire this police officer. That stuff happened in Mississippi in the 1960s. So don't tell me we can't do it on a larger level than that. We can do whatever we put our minds to. We don't. You're not going to get anywhere with us talking to us about what we can't do. I don't even speak that language, because I know that we can do whatever we put our minds to do. So that can happen in the Democratic Party, but right now that work is not prioritized in the Democratic Party. The only thing that happens is right around election times, we mobilize to elect some cracker into office, and that cracker does cracker policies against us. And when I say cracker, I'm talking about even the ones that look like us. They still enact mass incarceration policies. They support the police. They support AFRICOM, terrorism, all throughout the African continent. I don't care what color they are, that get in power, they support those anti-human, anti-African policies. And that's because we have no power to hold them accountable to us. So that's where the mass movement organizing comes in. That work has to happen. Another example where that happened even though this was a bourgeois effort by a reactionary political party. But in 1992 and 1996 in this country, you had the Reform Party by Ross Perot. And if you study that movement, they were pushing to get this clown elected to be president of this country. And then, of course, obviously that's another bourgeois election. But the difference is these people had a ground campaign because they didn't have the Democratic or Republican Party. So they created a ground campaign, a movement like I'm talking to you about. And because of their reason, they had 11,000 volunteers working across the country. And because of the work they did in the early 90s, they did research and they exposed this scam where these Congress people, dozens of people in National Congress, were having these bank accounts that are provided to them, and they were just writing checks on the accounts, whether there was money in the accounts or not. And the average congressperson, there were about 50 of them involved in this scandal. The average congressperson had like $12,000, $13,000 in overdrafts in the bank because they were Congress people, just kept paying their checks. And the Reform Party exposed that. And by doing that, they forced, legislation to be passed to prevent that from happening. Because if you go $2 overdraft, your bank is charging you fees and they're threatening you and doing all that. So why should they get, those privileges that are illegal and that you're not allowed to do, that you would face legal action if you did it. So even though that's just a simple example of reform, don't just look at that. The point I'm making is that if you have 11,000 people working on the ground, at least on some level, they were able to hold the Democratic Party more accountable than the African masses have been able to hold it for the last 80 years. That's the point. That's the point that I hope you take from that. So if you're going to be in the Democratic Party, work with other Africans. Work with other Africans in the Democratic Party and do organizing work to figure out how you can organize an African caucus in the Democratic Party to hold the Democratic Party responsible. And we have said it every time, and we'll continue to say it. We are revolutionary Pan-Africanists. We are not trying to build up the Democratic Party. We go by the words of Malcolm X when he said, we're not students of politics, we're not politicians, we're neither Democrats nor Republicans nor Americans, and got sense enough to know it. So that's where we're coming from. But at the same time, because we do have strong organizing skills, publicly, we offer you, if you're committed to the Democratic Party, you're not playing around, but you really want to do something for our people, but you don't know how to do what I'm talking to you about in terms of organizing mass movements, we will help you do that. We will help you develop organizing strategies within the Democratic Party. We're not going to do the work because we're not trying to build the Democratic Party. We have our own work, but we will help you do it if that's what you want to do. So we put that out there publicly just to demonstrate how serious we are about that being the solution to our problem. So if that's where you are, please contact us. You can do it now through the chats. There will be information at the end of this where we can show you directly how to get in touch with us. So we will certainly look for you to do that. Don't get off this call and say, well, all they did is talk about how I'm wrong to be in the Democratic Party. Don't tell that lie, because that's not what we've done. What we've done is talk about how we need to build work to strengthen our work no matter what arena we're organizing in, and how we'll help you do that even though we don't agree with you. Who else does that? Who else do you know offers to help you do your work even if they don't agree with it? That's because we are revolutionaries, and all we want is the forward progress of our people. And we know that the more work you do in the Democratic Party, the more you realize the Democratic Party is not the solution for our people. But the only way that can happen is by you doing the work. So we want to help you do it to the best of your ability. So we put that out there. So the other part of this is, if you're not engaged in the reform building of political parties, if you want to build revolutionary parties, this is our work. This is the work we're doing. Independent, revolutionary, Pan-African political parties. This is the work that we're doing. In other words, not organizations that are part of the nonprofit industrial complex, not that. not organizations that receive funding from the government or from corporations, not that, but independent, revolutionary organizations whose only funding comes from the masses of African people. Because with that foundation, we are only accountable to the masses of African people. We're not accountable to the Rockefeller family. We don't care what the Rockefeller family thinks. That's why we can talk like we do. That's why we can act like we do, because we're not beholden to any of those people. We're only beholden to the masses of our people. So if you look at like a great example of reform organizing today in the US is labor unions. Labor unions are large. They have millions of members. They actively mobilize to elect candidates for office. But if you look at the masses of African people who are in the labor movement, we're not organized. So labor unions, and I can say this because I'm involved in one, I work for one, labor unions, like any other institution in society, are dominated by white supremacy. And the Africans in the labor unions have no process to struggle against that because we're not organized within the labor unions. So this situation I'm talking about organizing in these reformist organizations, that's why it's so important. And that's why we offer to assist with that. So revolutionary parties, building revolutionary parties. So that's our work. Like we've talked about, our work is to build mass revolutionary Pan-African political parties on the ground in Africa. And then outside of Africa, to build political parties and build community defense networks in those parties to build a worldwide network of revolutionary Pan-African freedom fighters. That's the work that we're involved in the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. So if you watch African Liberation Day Monday, and if you didn't watch it, you really missed something. I'm sorry for you. Because if you watched it, and you can go on YouTube and watch it, type in African Liberation Day 2020, you should watch it. Because what it was a demonstration of what I'm talking to you about. I can talk to you about it till I'm blue in the face, but if you watch the program, you can understand exactly what our work is. Because in that, you saw the keynote address was given by the sister who is the Secretary General of the General Union of Guinea-Bissau Women in the African Party for the Independence of Guinea-Bissau, or the PAIGC, as you see in the banner in the picture in the lower left here. And she said in the presentation, we need one unified socialist Africa. So our work is working with all the political formations on the ground who believe that we need one unified socialist Africa. The book that I showed you, the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, Kwame Nkrumah calls for that to be the strategy to achieve Pan-Africanism. Revolutionary parties uniting into one fighting force worldwide. So the picture you see on the top is an iconic picture for us in the All-African People's Revolutionary Party, because in this picture, it was taken in front of the headquarters of the Democratic Party of Guinea, the party of Sekou Touré, who's one of our ideologues. And there you see in the picture, and I apologize, I don't know everybody in the picture, but I can tell you the people I see. The brother on the far left is our dear departed brother Olu Asuner Gordon. He was an organizer in the Pan-African Union of Sierra Leone, which is a mass organization in Sierra Leone. And he was also a Central Committee member for the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. And if you go over to the fourth brother from the right, that was Kwame Touré, who I showed you earlier in the picture, Stokely Carmichael, who was involved in the amazing work SNCC did in the Southern US in the 60s. Of course, he moved to Guinea, where this picture was taken, and he spent the last 30 years of his life helping to build the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. So he was a Central Committee member for the Democratic Party of Guinea, as well as a Central Committee member for the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. And then two people to the right of him, the brother with the hat, is Amani Na Umoja, who today is a member of the Central Committee of the PAIGC in Guinea-Bissau, and a member of the Central Committee of the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. And then next to him is Brother Ni Arde from Ghana, who is a leading cadre there for the All-African People's Revolutionary Party, and the Convention People's Party, which was the party founded by Kwame Nkrumah that brought independence to Ghana. So just by looking at this picture, you can understand what our strategy is about in terms of building Pan-Africanism around the world. So those of us who are still on these slave plantations, like myself, our work is to build community defense networks that can build strength so that we can take our level of protest to a much higher level. Now, in this last week, if you're paying attention, it should have been instructive. What has it been instructing about? That our people, as Kwame Ture said, we can rise up when we get upset. We can burn a whole city. As he said, we burn this country from plantations to cities. We can do that, and then we can sit down for 29 years. Why? Because we are not organized. The uprisings this week have been spontaneous. You don't know right now what's going to happen in 2 days regarding these protests against police terrorism. You don't know because it's not planned. But in 2 days, people will be out doing something. Now, we're not against that. Any form of protest is good. All we're saying is that as much as we've been able to bring this country to the point that it's at today, where I see people who get on social media every day and all they talk about is food and fun and you know, those kind of things. Now, all of a sudden, they're talking about what needs to happen to bring about justice. So it's great because it's these protests that have pushed them to do that. But and we think all of this is wonderful, but all we're saying is that imagine how much more we could do if we were even just slightly organized. Imagine how much more we could do. So if we're building a worldwide network, a worldwide foundation of revolutionary African political parties, and we have, with that network, a worldwide network of Africans outside of Africa who are doing the same, and we organize a protest. Just picture, bear with me for 1 second and imagine this. Imagine, instead of us just running out on a freeway with no plan, no health insurance if we get hit by a car, nothing, just our anger, which is righteous anger, but that's all we got. Instead of just doing that, what if we organize that? And we organize, say, the truckers' unions who have the trucks that are going up and down the highway. If we organize them, drive your trucks to this point and stop so nobody can get by you. Don't say they won't do it, because they just did it a couple of months ago here in the town I live, and they did it all across the country. The Teamsters did it, protesting their cuts. So don't tell me they won't do it. They will do it. It just has to be organized. What if we did that? What if we organized people to come out on the highway in shifts? Because people have to live their life. And so if you just run out there, you're out there for a couple of hours and you start getting tired and dehydrated and hungry, and then you got to go to work tomorrow and you got to pick up the kids, so you got to leave. So the protest is over. But what if we organized it and had shifts where at a certain point, the first shift leaves, the second shift is there. The second shift leaves, the third shift is there. What if we organize that? What if we organize distractions for the police? So that where we were all set up, and there's so many of us that there's nothing they can do to move us. What if we organized so that everybody had gas masks so the tear gas wouldn't work when they sprayed us with that? What if we engaged in just those basic level, all things I just mentioned can be organized in a day or two if you know how to do it. And even if you don't know how to do it, no more than a week or so. What if we did that though? What would happen if we stopped commerce in this country for 2 weeks? Remember the example I gave you about Canton, Mississippi. If we stopped commerce in this country for 2 weeks, I guarantee you that we would see tremendous progress. Why? Because we would demonstrate we have the power to bring this system to its knees. Kwame Ture said, the struggle of nonviolence is a great moral struggle, but it only works when you're able to appeal to the conscience of your enemy. And he said, the problem that we face is America has no conscience. So we can stand out here begging and pleading all we want, begging and pleading with police all we want. That is not going to do anything to stop what they do. Police were created to repress African people. Why? Because the wealth of the capitalist empire This country and all the capitalist countries in Europe, Australia, Canada is based on exploiting Africa. You couldn't even hear my words right now if cobalt wasn't exploited from the Congo to power these machines that give and receive signals. So the whole wealth of this system is based on the exploitation of Africa. The seed money that built this system is based on the transatlantic slave trade and the materials that our ancestors picked. So the power structure cannot have Africans figuring out what I just said, because the minute we figure that out, we're going to start asking the question, why are we the richest people in the world? Because Africa is the richest land base in the world, but yet we're the poorest people in the world. Why is that? And then we're going to start wanting to do something about it. And that's what they have to prevent. So that's why the minute you stand up and protest, they can't have you protesting, because the more you do that, the more you're going to figure out. And the more you figure out, the better organized you're going to get. And the better organized you're going to get, the more you're going to place yourself in a position where we can achieve worldwide unity. And when we do that, we're going to win, you all. And they know that. Even if you don't know it, they know it. And so because they know it, of course they're going to attack your protests. Of course they're going to do that. They're not going to do that to the white right protesters, because they're doing nothing to challenge the status quo. In fact, they're helping the status quo, because all they're out there doing is saying, we want businesses to open. That's capital accumulation. They love that. The power structure loves that. They support those. That's why, of course, he's going to tweet, yes, liberate Michigan. Of course, that clown is going to tweet that, because those are his soldiers. They're, even if they mean to or not, they're carrying out his agenda. So no, the police aren't going to attack them. They're not there to attack them. They're there to attack you, because the minute you stand up, it's a challenge to the power structure. And we've got to understand all of that. We can't be confused about that, because if we continue to be confused about that, all we do is run around like a dog chasing its tail. So independent revolutionary parties require the on-the-ground work. And you know, we've talked about that a great deal. We don't need to talk about that a lot today. We can direct you to the videos on YouTube, Building Revolutionary Community Defense. That talks about that in great detail. If you want to understand what I'm talking about when I say that, that talks about that in great detail. So I encourage you to watch that video, write down questions, and get in touch with us. That's what we encourage you to do. But that's the work that we're doing, okay? So that's important, because the revolutionary political work with the community defense component has to be structured on political education. We have to have mass political education. We have to get people studying what's going on in the world. The problem we have is we don't study anything. We don't study history. So that's why we still do the same thing over and over. Like, I can tell you right now, y'all, what's going to happen. We're out there right now, good intentions, but we don't really know what we're doing. So what's going to happen is that we're going to keep the pressure going, and the capitalist system, understanding that it's in a state of decline and it doesn't have the power to hold us off forever. They know that. Even if we don't know it, they do. And so because they know that, they will offer concessions. And if it means sacrificing one or two white supremacist police officers, they'll do that. They'll do that. If it means allowing 4 or 5 of us to be elected to office who are saying what we want to hear but don't have the ability to make it actually happen, they'll allow that to happen. They'll do that. They've done that historically. And so I saw a video today, I don't know what city it was, but some cops came to the march and were marching with the march. They had a banner supporting George Floyd, everything. These are police in police uniforms. Now, I pity you if you don't understand that that's staged. And something like that is staged because they know we'll go for it. And sure enough, all the people were surrounding them and cheering them on and encouraging them and acting like we had won something because these Gestapo pigs were out there marching with us. Like, are you serious? Like, the minute they entered any march that I was in, I'm out of that march, because that's a police march. That's what it is at that point, if it wasn't that already. So, but because we don't understand that, and we base progress based on how the power structure responds to us, we don't know how to build our own power that forces the power structure to respond the way we want it to, then we don't understand that. So that's why the political education is so important, because it helps us understand where our power is. I did a program Wednesday with my good comrade sister in Canada about police terrorism against our people in Canada. And most of us in the States don't know that police attack our people everywhere in the world. They don't just attack us here in the US, they attack us everywhere in the world that we are, they attack us. And the reason why they do is because they got to stop us from coming together. And so they're always going to attack us everywhere. So political education, you can come to understand that. You can come to, okay, this is why this happens everywhere. And the reason why it happens to Africans and it doesn't happen to other people, it happens to everyone, but the reason why it happens to us at a higher level, do you ever stop to think about that? Why does it happen to us? Well, it's because they just don't like Black people. No, that's not the reason why, you all. The reason why, yeah, they probably don't like us, but the people who run this, they don't like anybody. They just want people to work for them. But the reason why the system is directed specifically against us is because we come from our mother, which is the basis of the wealth of this society. That's not true for everybody else. That's true for us. So they gotta keep us under lock and key, because the minute we begin to free our mother, their day is over, and they know that. It doesn't matter that you don't know that, they know it. So that's what this is all about. So with political education, you can come to, get a real firm grasp on some of the things we're talking about here. I know it's foreign to people right now, but that's what we want to do is make it so you can come to get that understanding. All right, so we're gonna close with just talking about a couple of things. One, I say this all the time, and I know a lot of you that come on here, I appreciate you coming on here, but I know you're not in organizations. Even though we say it all the time, and you say, yeah, I've heard you say that, but you're still not doing it. And so we have to keep saying it because it is the solution to the problem. We've got to get people organized. The problem we have right now, I will tell you right now, 85% of the people participating in protests are not in any organization. So it's great that they're out there. That's wonderful. Not saying that. Please don't misinterpret what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the fact that they're not in organizations prohibits us from accomplishing a higher level of work to advance us farther, because a lot of people come to the protest, they leave, they don't connect with anybody, they're not involved in anything. They might not come to another protest until the next person gets shot and killed. That could be a year from now. So that's a year we lost in time to move us forward with those people. So that's why we got to get people in organizations. We got to get people in organizations. I don't care how smart you are, and you might be 30 times smarter than me. That's not difficult to accomplish. So that's a given. You're smarter than me, but you still can't solve this problem by yourself. Marcus Garvey said it correctly. We only live 70, 80 years at the most. The world is millions of years old. So there's no one person that's going to live long enough to understand the forces that drive the world. So that's why when you link with other people, if you have 100 people who live to 80, you have thousands of years of experience at your disposal now, instead of just your few years. That's why organization is so important. And it doesn't matter what organization. It can be any organization. It can be the most broke down organization. That's okay. Because the most broke down car is better than no car. It's better than the person, it's a better form of transportation than the person who's walking. If the car is going 10 miles an hour, puffing smoke, it's still a better method of transportation than someone walking. So we're not telling you what organization to join. We're just telling you, you gotta be in some organization. And we're telling you that organization has to have political education. That is not just you reading books individually. That's not enough. That is not enough, because even if you read all the books on earth, you're going to die. And so you're not, all that knowledge dies with you. It doesn't help us in any way. So that's why it's important for you to have political education as a part of your organization, so that it's a collective conscious raising process. And then you can go out and get more people. And that's how we build greater capacity. That's what our enemies do. Do you think that the police stop organizing when the protests stop? Of course they don't. You see the police every day doing what they do. That's why there's protests, because they do what they do every day. But we think we can just respond when something happens, and that we're going to be able to defeat that system. And that's why we don't win. We have to get organized to win. And so the organization and the political education process is the methodology to do that, you all. As Kwame said, organization is the weapon of the oppressed. So if you're not in an organization, and a lot of you are not, you have got to join organizations working for justice. If you don't see an organization working for justice, you have got to start one. You have got to today start as soon as this seminar is over, I'm gonna start I don't never want to hear that African again organization. And you have to go out, put the letterhead on your literature. This is I don't want to hear that African talk ever again organization. And we're organized, and you need to organize. And if you do that and you put my picture on there crossed out and you organize for justice, I'll contribute money to you. I'll do volunteer work. I'll do everything to help you, because that's what's important. That's what's important. So get your organization going. We got to just imagine if we have 8 out of 10 people not in organizations. If we had 8 out of 10 people in organizations, I'm sure all of you can see how much better, how much capacity we would have more than we have right now. How much better we would be in terms of addressing these issues. The discussions would be on a higher level. We wouldn't have the insane discussions we have right now. Well, they're rioting, they're tearing up their own neighborhood. Why are they doing that? What good is it gonna do for them to riot? We wouldn't be having those kind of ignorant conversations like we have them right now. You know, when the LA rebellion happened in 1992, Oprah Winfrey took her show there to South LA, and she had a show there. And she, with her bourgeois foundation, spent the whole show lecturing our people about how they shouldn't be tearing up their neighborhoods, and what good did it do for them to tear up their neighborhoods. And there was one young African there, could have been more than about 15, 16, that raised his hand. And when she took the mic to him, he said, "That we got you here." And that is absolutely correct. So anybody that we're revolutionaries. And if you don't know the difference between revolution and urban rebellions, that's why we need political education. If you think that's the same thing, that's why we need political education. They are not the same thing. So don't leave here saying that the All African People's Revolutionary Party advocated for urban rebellions. We want revolution, and armed struggle is a part of revolution. It's totally different. So don't act like you know what revolution is. You got to study revolution to know what it is, all right? So what we're saying, though, is that we don't want to have those kind of low-level conversations. We want to raise the level of conversation. And clearly, if we had 8 out of 10 people in organizations, that would be happening. The conversation would raise to a higher level, and it would take us farther. So we got resources here for you. If you want more information, you can go to our International All African People's Revolutionary Party site. It's aprp-intl.org. At the top bullet point there, there's information there. There's articles written all the time. You can catch links to our YouTube page. You can watch the video of African Liberation Day last week. Thousands of people are doing that. And then in the middle is the blog that I write, and you can reach me personally if you want to do that. If you want to cuss me out, you can join a lot of other people who do that. Doesn't bother me. My grandmother raised me, and she said, boy, you don't want everybody to like you. If everybody likes you, you ain't doing something right. So, we're organizers. And if you know anything about organizing, that means agitation. So I'm supposed to make people uncomfortable. I'm doing my job if you're uncomfortable. So you can go to my blog, www.abetterworld.me. And, I write prolifically there. I posted an article that I posted Friday, and it had like 1,000 likes the last time I looked at it. And it's called, "If the Police Murder Me, Don't Just Rebel, Please Organize." So I encourage you to read that and other articles. And then another really good source is the hoodcommunist.org site, African Revolutionary Perspectives from many different writers. I write for that one honorably as well. And last thing I want to say, if you want to know more about the All African People's Revolutionary Party, if you want to get involved, doesn't matter where you live, because we're all over the world. If you want to get involved, please contact us. You can contact me through the betterworld.me site. I say that every week, but since I've been doing that, only one person has done that, followed through and contact. And that person followed up and is now part of our work study circle process. So that person is serious. But only one person has done that. And I've even said it, and I'll say it again, if you're not African, you can't join the All African People's Revolutionary Party, but you can join or start some other organization, and we'll help you do that. But not one person has reached out to do that. And I know you're not in organizations, so I know it's like, I guess people are like, well, I'm just gonna wait and it'll come from the sky, or I don't know. If you have a better strategy, I sure wish you would share it with the rest of us poor folks, because we're only doing what we see and we know will work. So we want to encourage you again, join an organization working for justice. We will be back next week with another seminar topic. Shukura and I, we both thank you. We want to encourage you to use the rest of the day to reflect how you can make your best contribution, what organization you can join, what research you can join, and one thing you can do. Someone asked me this morning, well, how do I, what can I do to find organizations? So I'm like, well, just check out organizations, go to their orientations, read their literature, ask them questions. And from that, you either find an organization that works for you, or you'll figure out what you need to do to start your own organization. You can do that. But our organizing work is worldwide, you know, and I told you, I did the event in Canada. This morning, I talked to an African in France, in Paris, who is a strong African who wants to organize the All African People's Revolutionary Party there. So we're starting that work. We're doing our work, you all over the world, to fight our oppression that we experience. And we need you, because there are many of you out here right now listening to me who can contribute much more than I'm capable of contributing. So we need you. But if you don't want to join us, you have to join some organization working for us. So with that, we're just going to say one more time, contact us at either, if you live somewhere else throughout the world, the APRP site, contact us, let us know you're interested. If you are in the Western United Snakes region, I live in Sacramento, California, in the United Snakes of America, the stolen land from the indigenous people. Feel free to reach out to me through abetterworld.me, and we will connect with you, and we will talk to you about organization. So we're going to continue to do that work. We encourage you to engage and get involved, and we just wish you a peaceful Sunday. We wish you a positive rest of your day. Forward ever, backwards never.